Sahera, we've all seen your work on the Together Unlocked live stream. We've been treated to your signed poems, your promotion of your creative workshops, but of course, mainly for us, you've starred in WhatsApp Auntie. For any viewers who don't know, What's Up Auntie is a series of films. It's a longer film and 9 shorter films which explain how the NHS COVID-19 app works. We created the film with less than 24 hours' notice and no extra money from the government when we were told with less than 24 hours' notice that Newham was going to pilot the app and there was no accessible information. I'm going to play the video after this interview so you can all see Sahira's work on the stream. But I'm delighted to say that over 20 million people have now downloaded the NHS COVID-19 app. It's being much, much more successful than Test and Trace. The feedback we gave in Newham, I know, resulted in some very, very fundamental changes, and we couldn't have got that feedback without being able to explain the issues to people and how the app worked, which was all down to Sahera. But also, in such a difficult time and with something so important, I just laughed and laughed and laughed when I edited it. You know, I know you do all sorts of other things, but I just love your comedy work. So I'm going to start by asking, how did you get into comedy?
So really, I got involved in comedy. Well, it's from a while ago now. For a few years, I've been involved in the comedy scene, um, just with friends and just telling jokes, just making people laugh. And I think that sort of progressed as I got older, making more jokes, making people laugh, and carrying that on, and kind of bringing that into performance when I was acting as well. And I realized when I was acting, it would make people laugh as well. I thought, okay, carry on with this, carry on. And also making fun with children as well, making comedy with children. So when I started getting involved in acting, I got involved with Vegetable and Fruit Corporation, and it was a performance for children. And it was very, very, very visual. Used a lot of. It was at the V&A Museum, sorry, and it was a performance there, and everyone was laughing a lot, and everyone said, kind of gave me the name of a clown, saying I was very good, and so that was a really good piece of comedy, and it kind of just went from there, really.
But it's not just being funny. You managed to create, with so little notice, such a strong character in Auntie. And she's also a character that you recognize in every single culture.
Yeah, yeah. I think because there's always kind of visiting your auntie, or you've got that memory of what they're wearing, their behavior, the communication. And obviously, myself being deaf, I would kind of look at different communications, look at different behaviors, and saw that people always acted that way, and everyone had that kind of visual of their auntie, of their behaviors. So I kind of just copied that and went with that. So it kind of came from my mum as well.
I hope there's going to be more Auntie, yes, more Auntie films or more Auntie work, because I just love Auntie. I'd love to know much more about Auntie. But it's also the way you managed to occupy the two characters, just absolutely brilliant. Also reminds me of Sarah Cooper, who's come to such prominence in the last few months simply by voice, yes, by sinking Donald Trump. But it's that same way she inhabits all of the characters in the sketch. And there's just something just very, very funny about seeing you be each person.
Oh, brilliant. Also, for me, I've created videos, a few clips. So one out of one, and it's got two characters in. One's younger and one's a bit older, and they're both cousins. And there's a few videos there, and it's similar style of comedy, and kind of you've got the mother role in there as well. So I'm working on 4 or 5 at the moment. So I'm going to definitely carry on making more comedy things. Definitely.
Well, you must be incredibly busy. How did you get into poetry?
Oh wow. I think I learned a lot about poetry through school. I didn't really think that I would be a poet or anything. And then I started writing a little bit, doing some creative work, maybe 10 years ago, I think around then. And so I joined a course to learn some more about writing and storytelling and poetry. And so I was just sort of putting poems down on a piece of paper, and my teacher looked at them and said, "Wow, it's really, really lovely poetry." And they encouraged me to carry on with my work, and just carried on with it from there, really. I think first time I joined BSL Poetry Slam, and that was the first time I delivered one of my poems when I joined that. And I started to really feel that from there my poetry was building. So I've done one of my poems 2 times. The first time I did one of my poems was in Rotherham, and it was with British Council invited me up there to do one of my poems. And it was similar to a poetry slam. So it was 2 deaf and 2 hearing there. And that was the first time I was involved up in Rotherham in there. That was about 2 years ago. So it was really, really good fun. It didn't win, but really good to be a part of. And so I think I just watched a lot of videos as well, learned from other people, and I've really enjoyed doing my own poetry. And it's just another skill, another string to my bow, and something different as well.
I didn't know all about the history of sign poetry till our film festival last year, and there was a documentary that I think was first shown on BSL Zone about a woman who'd gone over to America and brought sign poetry back to the UK. It was just beautiful. But you you sign poem, you write poetry in English. How many languages do you write poems in?
Well, my first language is British Sign Language. And then I've got English, and then I've got Home Sign as well. I can some other languages like Arabic. I've got a little bit of Arabic, a little bit Swahili, but also it's very visual BSL. So I think that's for me really. I don't really write in other languages. It's really BSL English and making it really visual. Maybe in the future, who knows? But for now, that's it.
But it is very unusual to have somebody writing in English and signing poetry. So I'm very impressed. But moving on, how did you train? What did you train in first?
Do you mean linked to poetry or just in general?
I think in general, because your artwork's so wide ranging.
Oh, okay. So my first training within my kind of career. Interestingly, 10 years ago, before I was working just as a youth worker. So I was working with a deaf organization, working in schools. And then when I was younger, I wanted to be an actress. But I felt like I was ready to join a course, but my parents said no. So I carried on studying as a youth worker. And when I was about 19, I worked all the way through. And then eventually I stopped, and I got married, and I decided to leave my job. I'd really had enough by then. I had a baby, now 13. So I carried on and I thought, what do I really, really want for a career in the future? And I chose an artist and an actor and a filmmaker, and I decided to pick that and start getting involved and seeing what would happen. So I started writing the writing course I told you about before. So started there, and then I did some filmmaking. I was interested in getting involved in filmmaking, so I got given these opportunities to start developing my skills, and it was really exciting. And then wanted to have a look in an acting course, and it was looking at deaf or mainstream courses, and eventually it was in a mainstream one, and they got given a place as well, and it kind of just developed from there. I know it's kind of a it's a hard job. It's not easy. I've got children. I'm doing this. It's a bit of a balancing act, but now work seems to be 2, 3 years ago. It was developing, and it's just been developing from then. So I have received training, but it's very basic kind of writing, acting, filmmaking courses that I've been doing. So I've not kind of done a full trained qualification yet. I'm hoping in the future I'll be able to do it. And I'm still learning a lot, and I'm still doing some training when I can.
Well, I think we learn as artists all our lives, but I haven't seen any. Well, I think short professional courses are always great. I would always recommend them. But everything you do is so skilled and so well crafted that I can't imagine that a long course would have a great deal to offer you. We're going to hear much, much more from Sahera on Saturday. In fact, when this interview goes out, that will be tomorrow from 3 o'clock. I'm going to tell you much more about that in a minute. But just finally, for now, Sahera, how did you get into filmmaking?
Oh gosh, how did I get involved in filmmaking? I remember I wrote a very, very brief idea for a film and submitted it to a company. And the artist asked me to come for an interview and have a discussion about it. And they had said they had a possibility of going on a course to learn about filmmaking as well. So I joined. Do you know Open University? It was a digital school film that they had there, digital film school. And the course looked really good, and it was quite cheap at the time. So I thought, oh, I've been offered it for free, and I think maybe I'll go. I got funding for it, which is how I could go for it for free. I think now it's quite expensive. It's 2 or 3 thousand, I think now, but I think back then it was about 500 when I was offered a place. So from then I was learning about filmmaking and different parts that were involved in that, how to write, for example, how to film, things that you can do yourself, and learning that doesn't matter, you can do it yourself. And then I had to make my own short film, and that really helped me to start that part of my career. And then I applied to BSL Zone just for a short film online, and that was stand up. And then they looked at it and they gave me some funding for that, and then I filmed that and was involved as an actress as well. So that was really exciting. I was kind of writing, developing, creating, but it's not easy, and it's always all slow progress and all about development. But I've been involved in quite a lot of BSL Zone shows, and it's just little bits here and there, really. And I know I'm good, but I'm, yeah, still not great at computer. I'm learning. So it's all a learning curve and all developing and all creating. But yeah, I've been going for a while, and I'm still going.
And I think going on to ever greater things, we always show the BSL's own films at our film festival. So, of course, we're familiar with them, and they go down at least as well with a hearing audience as they do with a BSL audience. And I think that's one of the things about your work. It's so appealing to everybody. So, if you want
Oh,
to
thank you.
know more about Sahira's new production, The Fox and the Cockerel, see it launched, and learn much more about Sahira's career, then join us on Saturday from 3 o'clock. You can book tickets on Zoom to see the interpreter, or you can simply watch it on YouTube from our website. So, thank you so much, Sahira, and thank you, Harry, for interpreting.